And welcome everyone back to the channel. I am your host here on the Yo Bro Nation YouTube channel. I am Zach, and this is your Walking Dead Season 1, Episode 5 review, Wildfire. Oh man. This was an emotional episode. That is definitely for sure. I want to thank everyone for joining us here today on the channel. Let's see, episode 5, one more to the finale. That one of the better finales, I think, in television history. The first finale of the series. But here we are, Wildfire. A lot happens in the 39 minutes that this episode is. A lot happens. A very, I guess you could say a very emotional episode for sure. Nothing action-wise really happens, but it's just like I said, a lot of emotion. That's honestly the best way that I can even begin to just describe the episode in general. It was just emotional. Everything from the deaths to the disputes and stuff that you have. You get your first glimpse at Shane and what's going to happen. They start, that little they sprinkle that little bit of seed. I guess they sprinkle those seeds of where you're going to see Shane eventually go. They do a lot in this episode. I think outside of episode 2, this so far has probably been my favorite episode of season 1, just because of the emotional impact that the episode actually has on the series as a whole. Everything, like you experience 2 deaths throughout this episode. Everyone's like just on eggshells. They're trying to decide what they want to do going forward. Like, it's just a lot. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to jump into this and just do it, I suppose. So the episode starts with Rick trying to reach Morgan on the walkie. Telling him that he found his family, telling him that he found others. He warns him about Atlanta, how it belongs to the dead now, not to go there. But, he's only getting static. We see Lori trying to talk to Andrea, who's still sitting there with Amy, still holding her. And this is morning time. The sun's up. It's not even dark anymore. But she's trying to talk to him, says, we got to do something about this, but, I understand it's your sister. We'll be as gentle as we can. We cared about her too. But Andrea is not saying a word. You can tell she's still in shock at this point. You see him burning the bodies, putting pickaxes into their heads. Rick, Lori, Dale, and Shane, they're all discussing, what to do. Shane's like, hey, we need to deal with this. And they're trying to be, you can tell they're trying to be empathetic to her situation, but Rick's like, fine, I'll tell her how it is. And he goes to walk up to her, and she just pulls a gun on him, says, I know how to turn off the safety. And he's like, okay, and he just backs away and just lets it ride out. And you get to the intro of the channel. I love that the channel of the show. I love that theme. So we start off with Daryl. He's like, hey, we need to take care of this. We need to, we take care of this. We need to put a pickaxe in their head, shoot a bow, something. He's like, I could hit her from here. And they're just kind of like, hey, just Lori more or less is like, hey, just let her be. So Daryl's like, whatever. He's like, he goes to burn the other bodies. Him and Morales are moving, and Glenn freaks out. No, what are you doing? That's where we put the geeks. We burn them. We bury. Like, he has this big emotion. Like, you can see all the emotions from the night before, the going to Atlanta and dealing with all that. It's all finally building up for Glenn. and he just has a big freak out. And Daryl, of course, he has a reaction, y'all had this coming, leaving my brother for dead. You understand the emotion Daryl's going through. You understand the emotions Glenn's going through. You understand what everyone is going through here, right? So we see Jim moving people, and Jackie's helping him, and she notices he's bleeding. He's like, it was just blood from, the walkers and stuff. She's like, no, it looks fresh. And he's like, oh, I'm fine. It's nothing really. And she's like, you got bit, didn't you? And he's like, no. And she's not buying it. So she tells her, he's like, fine, like, look, just don't tell no one. And she freaks out. Everyone, he got bit by a walker. So of course they're freaking out. And they see the wound. He got bit right on the stomach. So again, they're talking about what should we do. And Daryl's like, put a pickaxe in his head. And Daryl's like, I never thought I'd say this, but I agree. And Rick's like, well, what if we could, help him? And he starts talking about the CDC and, maybe they can go there. And Shane's like, hey, man, I don't know. He's like, the near, if there is any sort of government left, it's probably going to be at Fort Benning. And they're having this big discussion whether they should do that or what they should do. But Daryl's like, y'all want to talk about going to get medication? Well, I'm going to go in this. And then Rick pulls a gun on him. We don't kill the living, which when you think about it, yeah, they do, and they have, and they probably will for sure again. But it's cool, Rick. We understand you're trying to be a good trooper. But Shane's like, hey, we always agree eye to eye, but we agree on this. So they take Jim into the RV. Dale goes to Andrea. He's like, I just want to pay my respects. And you learn a little bit about Dale here. He talks about, how he lost his wife to cancer. And how he, took her all these doctor's appointments, to the surgeries and the chemo. And at the end of it all, she was ready to go. But, she made peace, but he wasn't. And he hadn't. And how, when she did finally pass away, he was angry for years. And he's talking about, when he met them, Amy and Andrea, they were the first people he cared about. Andrea talks about how she missed Amy's birthdays, and every year it was like a week-long event, but she was always in college or whatever and would always miss him and never make it past a phone call. And she takes the necklace that she got her from Atlanta and puts it around her neck. Like, this is really emotional. Like, this is one of the few times where I can actually tolerate Dale. I've made it known I did not like Dale. Dale was too overbearing to me. But this is one of those moments where I'm like, hey, that is actually like a nice touch. Like, I can appreciate what he's doing here, and him talking about his wife and the cancer and everything. It's like, oh man, that's actually not that bad. Like, I can handle that. That's decent. But we see Daryl, he's, killing more geeks or making sure that everyone's dead. And Carol walks up. She's like, I'll do this one. He was my husband, so because he's getting ready to kill Ed, or finish off Ed, make sure he stays dead. And you finally see the emotion. Carol finally lets it out. This is the first time we see that bit of Carol that we know. And she gets him with the pickaxe, and she does it again and again, and she's just so emotional. She's finally letting all that pain out. And you just feel so bad. Like I said, this episode is just emotional on all these different levels. From Carol to Shane to Rick to Lori to just Andrea, they're all so emotional, and you get why. We also see that Amy starts to wake up, and she opens her eyes, and it's just these dark gray eyes, like she's dead, right? You know that. You feel like for a second Amy recognizes her, but you realize quickly, no, she's just starting to become aware of her surroundings. And the instincts are starting to kick in for her. And Andrea's showing her how much she still loves her. Again, emotional, apologizes for not being there, thought she'd have more time. Everyone's watching, forgot, like, oh fuck, like, she's awake, she's gonna kill her. Right? She's gonna kill her. And, so she says, she tells her that she loves her, and then she shoots her in the head. And you're just, oh man, this is rough. So we cut to Shane and Rick. They're burying bodies, and Rick's just like, all right, tell me. Shane's like, I think if you would have stayed, we wouldn't have lost so many people. And Rick's like, I think if I hadn't gone, we would have lost more, maybe the whole camp. Daryl pulls up, thinks they should burn all the bodies. He's like, we need to know who's in charge. We need rules. And Rick's like, well, there is no rules. And Lori says, that's the problem. We aren't taking time to remember who we were, to remember that piece of us. We need time to mourn. We need to bury our dead. That's what we do. And this is where you first see like that moment where it's like their humanity and everything is starting to like come into play. Like, what are they doing? What are they doing here if they're not going to try to have some semblance of what they used to be, right? And again, it's an emotionally fueled scene, but it's like one of the least emotional. But you understand where she's coming from. Like, hey, we need to mourn these people. We can't just bury them and move on, right? Or burn them and move on. We see Jim is starting to have like these fever dreams. He's starting to see the dead and he's sweating real bad. Like he's freaking out. And we see Andrea pulling Amy's body into the grave, and Dale helps her out, and everything. Rick tries, to talk to Lori, but, she doesn't want to talk yet. And Carl's like, are we okay? He's like, comfort him, like, I'm never leaving again. And then he does talk to her, or to Lori, and he's like, Shane's blaming me, how do you feel the same way? And she's like, look, the best I can do is, I don't think either of you are wrong, but neither of you are right. It's the most I can do. And he's like, well, what about the CDC? He's like, we need to help this man. I just don't know what to do. Like, again, they're so emotional. And she's just like, look, she basically is like, I don't want to go there if there's a chance that it can't be real. Or if it's not actually there. It's like, I need something. How did she put it? She's like, I need something with certainty. And he says, I love you. That's all I got. And they love, they hug and embrace, and it's a nice scene. But God, I can't stand Lori sometimes. Rick goes to check on Jim. Jim asks Rick if he left him a grave, and Rick's like, well, I want to take, to help you. And Jim just starts talking gibberish and asks Rick about, we watched the boat, and Rick's like, yeah, I'll watch the boat. Shane's outside the camper talking to Lori, wanting her to talk sense into Rick, and you gotta leave your marriage out of this. Your marriage really worth putting over all these people. It's like, well, people didn't bring my marriage into it. It's like, maybe you should break the habit. He's like, oh, well, I'll add that to the list of habits I need to break. Even if I don't want to. It's about that moment Rick walks into it, and he's like, even if you have to what? He's like, talking about making these plans, man, and he expresses how he wants to stay, that he thinks going to the CDC is a bad idea. And Rick's like, well, why not? Why not take the chance if we can get some help? Like, we need this. And Shane's like, why don't we go do our sweep? So they're going on to doing their sweep, and they're still talking, and Shane's trying to express to him, like, look, man, I want to be on board with this, but I just don't see it. And Rick makes the mistake of being like, well, if this was your family, maybe you'd feel different, or you'd understand. Shane's like, what do you mean? Like, Shane gets mad. He's like, what do you mean? It's like, I watched out for them. I took care of them like they were my own. Rick's like, man, you're not understanding me. And I'm thinking to myself, actually, no, you completely meant that, man. But they don't get to finish that conversation because they hear a tree branch snapping. So Rick's looking around and Shane's looking around. And this is the moment you first see the crazy coming out of Shane. He sees Rick, and he's got the gun pointed at Rick, and he's following him. And he just gets this look of like, oh, if I could do this right now, I could end him and Lori would be mine. But he stops himself. And then Dale's just standing there, and he's just looking at him like, and he goes, Jesus Christ. And Shane plays off like, yeah, man, we're going to have to start wearing, reflective vests out here. And he whistles at Rick, hey, man, let's go. He's like, come on, Dale, let's go. Like, he plays off like nothing happened. But Dale's just got this look of like, wow. Like, another scene, I'm like, yeah, Dale, I actually can agree with you here. That's kind of fucked up, right? But you see that thing, like, Shane legit was ready to kill him. So Shane agrees to Rick's plan of going to the CDC, and he tells everyone, hey, there's no guarantee, but he trusts Rick's instincts. Says, for those who agree, we're going to leave first thing in the morning. So we see Rick trying to get a hold of Morgan again. He says, hey, we're going to go here. Says, there'll be a red car. I'm going to leave you on a map to show you where we're going. He says, he needs him to be right about this whole CDC thing. So Shane's going over the plan with everyone. Morales says that him and his family, they're going to go to Birmingham, that they have family there. They're going to go be there with him. So they give him some ammo, and everyone says their goodbyes, and they load up, and they start to go. But you notice during this whole montage of them driving and stuff that Jim's getting bad. Jim's in bad shape. But then the RV is smoking. And he's like, Dale's like, I told you it wouldn't make it very far. So they're like, okay, there's a gas station up the road. We'll head up there. And then Jackie comes out like, hey, Jim's bad. So Rick goes to talk to Jim. T-Dog and Shane go to get the part. We don't see that, but they get the part and everything goes fine. So he's in there. He's talking to Jim and he's like, look, man, I can't take this ride no more. He's like, I just want to be left here. I want to be with my family. And Rick's like, hey, man, I don't think, I think it's the fever. I don't think you're thinking clear. He's like, no, I'm thinking clear for the first time. He's like, but in 5 minutes, I might not be. He says, but look, this is on me. This is what I want. So Rick and everyone's discussing what to do. Dale says, look, you misunderstood me. When I said I agreed with him, I didn't mean that we shoot a man in cold blood. It's like, I think we should have just asked him what he wants. Now I think we have our answer. So Shane's like, look, I don't agree. And Lori's like, look, it's really not either of your calls. This is up to him. So they lay Jim by a tree. They all start to say their goodbyes. Jim finally looks at peace. Again, it's like, man, you didn't get a lot of Jim, but what you did get of Jim, you liked the guy. I genuinely did like Jim. I thought he was a really good character, even though he really didn't have a long run. So again, it's another really super emotional scene. But then we cut, as they're driving off, we cut to this video feed with Wildfire and then some code. And we see some guy named Jenner says it's been 194 days since Wildfire was declared and 63 since the virus went global. And said they had no progress to report. He starts talking about being off kilter, not sleeping, not knowing what the days are, etc., etc. And then you see him running different tests with some brain matter, and you get to see the virus reacting to fresh tissue and how it just takes it over real fast. And he spills something, and it causes a fire, and decontamination takes place, and it blows up all his samples. So he's all freaked out, and he's doing another video, and he's drunk, and he says he doesn't even know why he's still talking because no one is really listening anyways. And he says, you know what, tomorrow I think I'm gonna blow my brains out, but today I drink. And he throws the bottle and all sorts of so you're oh shit, is there even really anyone out there to help? What are we supposed to do here? So we see Rick and them pull up, and you see all the dead bodies in front of this building. And you can tell they look kind of spent, and they look stressed. So they're going up the doors. Inside, Jenner hears this alarm going off, and he sees it, but he can't believe it. Walkers start showing up, and they're all panicking, and they don't know what to do. But Rick, it's like, hey, George, ain't a bad idea. And they're talking, look, it's after dark. We can't be near the city with all these walkers. He's like, but we got no food. We barely have gas. Where are we even going to go? This is they're really strapped in this moment. They've made this journey. They have nothing. They need this place. So Rick sees the camera move, and he's like, look, the camera moved. They're like, look, no, man, it's automated. It's just going to move. So they're trying to pull him away, and Rick's screaming, begging, we got women, children, no food, and barely any gas. We need to get in. They're desperate. And Jenner's watching. He's like, you're going to kill us. And they're freaking out. And they're pulling away, but then the doors start to open, and there's bright light, and they're all just looking. And that's how the episode ends, is with these doors opening and the light coming through. And I was like, that was an excellent episode. And it really was. So, the next episode is they're going to be inside this place, and we're going to learn more about the virus and how it reacts and all this stuff. So that will be the season finale. That's going to be next week. And then, of course, I'm going to take like a few weeks break for Christmas. Kind of enjoy, a little bit of a lighter schedule. But that is what will be next week and following. So, but that was the episode. And I give this episode like a 9.0 out of 10. Like, it wasn't the perfect episode. Not a lot of action, but it was still a really good episode. A lot did happen, even though nothing really happened. So it was good. But let me know down in the comments what you guys think. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on social media. Do all that fun stuff. Thank you guys for watching. You guys can see more videos like this. Just go to the channel. Do all that stuff. Go buy t-shirts. Buy t-shirts. But I am Zach with the channel. Remember, everyone, stay safe, stay healthy, and above all else, join the nation. You guys have a great day.